31 years to the day after Ronnie. Talk among Republicans. He's come back in the name of a guy named Ryan. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and it is very good to be back and a good time to go back in time. 31 years to the day, we all witnessed this.
And mark an end to the excessive growth in government bureaucracy and government spending, government taxing.
The biggest tax cut in American history. Well, maybe it was just us, but didn't that all come back again just today when we heard this?
We need to make sure we get rid of the loopholes, get rid of the deductions, lower everybody's tax rates so our businesses can survive and not keep taxing small businesses and spending that money in Washington.
Well, Art Laffer says Yogi Berra was right. It is deja vu all over again. Ronald Reagan's former top economic advisor on the guy some are calling this generation's hipper-gipper. Art, what do you think?
I think it's true. I mean, it's amazing to me that Paul was just 11 years old when that tax bill was signed.
That's right.
31 years ago. But he is the reincarnation. He really is. He's as good as it gets. And I'm so pleased with Romney for picking him because it really tells you the direction they want our country to go, and it makes it absolutely starkly clear what's going to happen if they win. And it's a vision that I have for the world. It's just a shared vision. I love it.
And it's interesting, he's a disciple of the late Jack Kemp, of course, who's famous. Kemp Roth, as Senator Roth at the time said, the Roth-Kemp tax cuts were the inspiration for stuff that you were coming up with in Ronald Reagan. But on to the notion whether now is the time for this. Democrats are saying now is not the time for this. This message is out of date, just out of sync. What do you think?
Well, I don't think the message is out of date. Now, whether it's the time or not, that's up to the voters to decide, Neil. I mean, people deserve the governments they get, and if they want another 4 years of Obama, God bless them. Frankly, I don't want another 4 years, but we'll see what the voters choose.
Now, the tax cut part of this, I mean, by picking Ryan, the argument could be made, I know you've made as well, that he is serious, that is Mitt Romney, about addressing big government and about getting more money in the hands of the people. The argument against doing that right now is he's in a bit more of a box than Ronald Reagan was then, given these exploding deficits and huge overall $16 trillion debt now. And that if Ronald Reagan were to come back 31 years ago today, the options wouldn't be as much on the table. What do you say?
Well, there's a difference to the economy today than there was back then, Neil. I mean, it's very true. Tax rates were much higher than when we came into office on January 20th, 1981. I mean, that's very true. But
what was the top rate back then? What was the top rate back then?
Well, the top rate back then was 70%.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the unearned income tax rate. Now, the earned income tax rate was 50%. Steiger-Hansen had passed in 1978, which had the capital gains tax rate was dropped from 42% to 28%. But, I mean, that's where we were then. We did not have the deficit problems that they have today, and we didn't have the spending problem they have today. Today, I mean, if you really think about it, Neil, government spending is taxation. I mean, it really, really is. That's the total tax bill. We address the composition of taxes very much to get economic growth. But today, you've really got to address the total volume of taxes, which is government spending. And were Reagan back here today, I'm sure he would make it very clear that he understood that government spending was a problem. And he said so in that little clip that you just had. But we would be focusing a lot more on cutting government spending down and bringing total taxes down.
We shall see. Art, it's always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Neil, it's fun. Where were you on vacation, by the way?
If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Okay. You weren't back in Italy, no.
That's just a cheap shot. And
New
totally
Jersey,
unnecessary.
New Jersey shores.
Keep going. You're assuring this is your last visit. Art Laffer on his final chat with me. Thank you, sir. In the meantime, Democrats wasting no time attacking the Romney-Ryan ticket.
This is a prescription for economic catastrophe. And what is surprising to me is that having been part of the first catastrophe, that Congressman Ryan thinks that we should double down on that policy and do it all over again.
It says something about Mitt Romney that he chose someone who has a budget that really it would be the end of Medicare as we know it.
That Mitt Romney has fully embraced by choosing Paul Ryan as his running mate is to shred that safety net.
Do you like Medicare? Now it is a choice. It is no longer just a referendum on Obama, and that's everything they wanted.
This kind of plan is going to be poisoned politically in this election.
To radio talk show host Mark Levin, who says, boy, oh boy, just bring it on. Mark, what do you make of this pretty much unanimous Democratic rebuke?
Is that your form of waterboarding, by the way, that I have to listen to those people?
I mean, really, it's amazing. You'd think the guy was Lucifer, but what do you think?
First of all, this election is about saving the country. And I'm going to tell you something. Medicare's trustees, appointed by Obama, said 6 months ago Medicare is broke in 12 years. So in 11 and a half years, there's nothing left. What does Obama do about it? Nothing. So Obama's policy is to let Medicare go broke in 11 and a half years. It's actually worse, Neil. That does not include, because I went back and read the report, the $700 billion he stole from Medicare to spread the wealth under Obamacare. And seniors need to understand who've paid into Medicare that he went into Medicare, their trust fund, took out $700 billion in the biggest raid in American history to take that money to fund Obamacare and spread the wealth to people who haven't paid into anything. That's number one. So, 11 and a half years. Number two, what does Ryan say? He says, look, I'm reading Obama's trustees' report. We got to deal with Medicare. Here's my proposal. Everybody 55 and older, you're unaffected, so you don't even need to listen to this debate anymore. And the truth is, because it takes a year or two for these things to kick in, it's really anybody 54 or 53 older. Now, what are we going to do about people in their 20s and 30s and 40s and early 50s? Ask Obama. He has no answer. If he can get a question in, he hasn't answered any questions for 7 weeks. So what does Ryan say? He says, okay, I've got a plan. And by the way, his plan still involves the government, to my chagrin. It's still fairly expensive, to my chagrin. It's still subsidized policies, to my chagrin. But it saves hundreds of billions of dollars over several generations.
We should explain, Mark, you're an encyclopedia on this stuff, as you are every night extolling this on your very fine radio show. But the fact of the matter is what the Ryan plan is, he offers vouchers for the elderly or those approaching that age group to get their own insurance, and there is the obligation of the government that many argue is just as onerous. It will obviously save a lot of money in the long term, but it will compromise our health care, Democrats say, in the short, medium, and longer term to boot. What do you say to that?
I say taking $700 billion out of Medicare to pay for even this Rube Goldberg Obamacare is a complete disaster that will compromise health care.
But do you think they're whatever they're saying, and we could see through some of the fallacies of these arguments just reading what the administrators of Medicare have written and reported and feared, that this is not worth the paper it's printed on, these attack lines. But nevertheless, the granny pushing off the cliff thing and everything else, it's going to scare voters in Florida. It's going to scare voters who might feel that this guy is Frankenstein, right?
You know what? I think people are getting sick and tired of Obama, and particularly this Axelrod, who looks like a French maitre d'. He gets there on TV, and he's Mr. Sourpuss going on and on and on about anything Republican and conservative. And I'm going to tell you something. The American people are living this nightmare. So Obama can put hundreds of millions of dollars of ads on. His union buddies can do the same thing. But they know what's going on in unemployment. They know they're losing their private health care policies. They know they're losing their homes. They know this guy is indebting their kids to God knows what. And that's the other point. He not only takes $700 billion out of Medicare to spread the wealth, the elderly are getting it in the neck, and their children and grandchildren are, because of the massive debt that this president's created. The fact of the matter is, they can do all their little one-liners and all the rest. I think the American people are smart enough, at least I hope enough of them are, to say no to this.
Now, having listened to you regularly, Mark, I know you've had your doubts, not only through the primary season, but serious questions about Mitt Romney throughout. In the end, you said anyone would be a better alternative to the president. But obviously this pick, in political terms, was meant to persuade passionate conservatives like you to rally around the nominee. Your comments notwithstanding, do you think it has and it will?
Well, yes. First of all, I rallied behind Romney because I want Obama defeated as soon as the primaries were over.
Yeah, but it was damning praise. I mean,
well,
didn't you say, like, you'd vote for an orange can over?
Well, yeah, and I want as many human beings as possible to turn out and do exactly that.
All right.
But that said, look, Paul Ryan is a class act, and I've said Rubio and Ryan were the class of the field, and they are, and he chose Ryan, and I'm thrilled about it. Ryan's been on my show many, many times. He's talked about Medicare. This guy is fluent. He's fluent in the ways of conservatism, constitutionalism, free market economics. He knows this budget better than Obama ever could. And I would suggest that the Romney campaign proposed 10 debates between Ryan and Biden. And let's see how that goes.
Wow, wow. Well, tonight I'm going to call as Maurice into you and see what you think. But in the meantime, Mark, thank you very, very much. Mark Levin.
God bless you, bud.